Okay, everybody, and welcome to another episode of On There's Some Off the Cuff. Today we have a review from you, another one from the brand Spinnaker, and essentially a little bit about them. And they offer really those classic nautical design aesthetics in an affordable and modern package. This type of watch, of course, is a dive watch. Now, the key common characteristics in design language when you're looking for a dive watch, you're gonna want something that's gonna be, of course, water resistant through some type of screw-down crown. You want something that's tough, legible, with a dive time bezel and a diver's extension if on bracelet. This particular model you've already seen on the channel once. It is the Bradner, sorry. But this particular model is the updated one now featuring a beads of rice bracelet, which I think is really cool, and of course totally fitting with that 70s retro vibe. And also they have an updated color palette. The last one you guys saw, of course, also had a blue dial, but a very different kind of blue motif. Here you're actually getting that kind of blue and orange play. And the really nice thing that you might not have noticed until you get this piece in hand is that the orange play on the dial is actually kind of a really cool copper metal finish there. It's a metallic orange. It's not just like just a painted color of orange. So I think that really adds some really nice dynamic kind of look to it. And has, I don't know, I mean, it has almost like, I guess, like a rustic kind of feel, and it's quite impressive. So that combined with that almost fume dial, of course, sitting on top of that kind of granular sand-like finish, I think it looks really cool. So let's go ahead and take a closer look. Okay, so you might recognize this look from the last Bradner that we reviewed, but of course a little bit has changed. Now it's available on this super sweet beads of rice bracelet, and it's comes in at about 370 bucks direct from Spinnaker. It has a 42 millimeter diameter, 51 millimeters lug to lug, 15 millimeters thick, and of course is made out of full 316L stainless steel with a fully brushed case there, with some polished crowns, and then of course the nice polished center accents on this beads of rice bracelet. Now the sapphire is this really cool kind of slightly boxed edge to it, as you can see, which gives a bit of a magnification on that kind of outer slide bezel, which I think is really cool. And then you can obviously see the hints of that AR coating, the blue hue there that rides around. So there's a lot of visual interest for this timepiece, and it's something that is just kind of fun and reminds you of the water, of the ocean, even though you know, you might just be sitting in your office or something. So I think that's a nice kind of playful, the way the light and everything, and of course the color scheme really meshes together so well for this particular model. Now it has two crowns, of course. The sign crown here at the 4 o'clock is to, you know, of course sets the movement and everything, while the upper crown here closer to the 2 o'clock is actually it's unsigned and is what you're going to use to control that inner slide bezel. Now the movement inside, as you can see, of course, is still that great Seiko NH35 movement there. So hacking hand winding, but instead of being 4 hertz, it's going to be a 3 hertz beat. So it's going to be 6 ticks a second versus 8 ticks. So not quite as smooth as, you know, your typical Swiss movement, but you know, it's definitely right up there with your basic Japanese movements from Seiko. So you do have that nice see-through case back, very minimal as far as any decoration goes on that movement, even from Seiko themselves. And then Spinnaker really just brands the rotor, and I think they do a nice job of that. Now, of course, the main attraction here is going to be this dial. This thing is gorgeous. The color play is fantastic. You have that textured dial. You have the date at 3 o'clock, but then you have the nice black date disc there, which of course is being obscured by the minute hand as we speak, but it's a very nice balance. I think better than when if they would have went with a you know, white disc with black lettering, especially considering you do have white lettering you know, on the automatic there. So I think the white and the white match up nicely, and of course it does tie in well with the actual framing, the outline that goes around the date window. This one does use Swiss Superluminova. They don't really get too much into the fine details on it. One cool thing that you'll notice is that it does have those nicely brushed matte hands, but then you also do get that kind of coppery coating on top as well. So really cool, and then that ties in to that little kind of little chapter ring that's going around the outer perimeter of those applied indices, which also look really great. Now the water resistance is 18 atmospheres or 180 meters or 600 feet, so not too shabby. Not a hardcore diver, but again, I don't think anybody's going to be diving any deeper than 30-40 meters with something like this anyway, and really being something that you would see in a recreational dive, or of course just a swim and some basic water sports. Now the lugs are 20 millimeters, and this is a non-taping beads of rice bracelet, so it stays 20 millimeters all the way throughout. It would have been nice to see some taper, but of course the production costs, I'm sure, is quite high, and since it already has a smaller, thinner lug width, I thought, hey, it probably didn't make sense for them to spend too much more on adding taper and the basically all the extra tooling and machining that would be involved for something like that. But this beads of rice bracelet is quite handsome. As you can see, I'll let you get a close look at it. The nice thing is that it doesn't look too bad, of course, up close. Those aren't all individual pieces there. They are actually joined together pretty well, but I think it does a good job of kind of hiding that. And even underneath, you can see it looks like they're separate pieces, but if you look very close, you can see that they're just milled a particular way to look like three separate kind of links there. Well, more than three. It's really five, so three on the top and then two down low that kind of connect and interlock with the next three. So I think this is definitely, of course, for the price, it's under $400. This is a really nice beads of rice bracelet, so really nice from that standpoint. So let's go ahead and get this on the wrist. All right, now as you can see on my 7 1/4 inch wrist, even if I get a little bit more arm in there, still wears really well. Obviously, it's kind of a larger, fun piece, but I wouldn't call it oversized. Up close, you're going to see some lens distortion that's going to make it seem a lot huger, just, such is the way of the wristy. But you get a little bit further back, you get a little bit of better idea of how this thing wears. You can see it does have a nice kind of wrap around the wrist. Of course, beads of rice bracelets are quite comfortable, even though this one doesn't have, any type of taper to it. It is 20 millimeters all the way throughout. Still really quite good and quite comfortable. And this thing isn't going anywhere. So really nice. Also one thing I forgot to mention is that this also does have a dive extension. So pretty cool. And in this case, you can use the first two spots again, and then basically you might get a little bit too close there to use that last hole. So basically two usable ones, but because of the way that these links go, I was able to get a really nice fit on there. So now you guys can see me demoing, clipping everything in. So yeah, it works really nice. As you can see there, obviously it has a little bit of height to it at that 15 millimeters thick, but I think it does a good job wearing it and kind of hiding it and in a lot of different ways. So this is just a fun watch, throw on with a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. Obviously if you're near any bodies of water, this is just a fun little water sports watch. So let's go ahead and get into some loom shots and some low light transition. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights. As you can see, really nice. Maybe hit it with a little bit of black light there so you guys can get a little bit of an idea what this is going to look like with a bit of a charge on it. As you can see, of course, I do have it at a bit of an angle. Sorry about that. I do that so you can actually get a decent look at the bracelet as well and the frame, because I do these things, I call them low light transitions, essentially where I'll just hit it with a little bit of low light, because you're not always going to be under hot studio lights or direct sunlight, so you might want to get an idea of what this blue dial, what hue of blue you're actually going to see on your wrist, because you're not always going to be outside. So as you can see, sorry about that with the loom earlier, not quite legible. I should say as legible at that particular angle, but I did want to get a look at the beads of rice bracelet and the finishing against the lower light transitions there, so you can kind of see the way the light plays off of it, how uniformly the light will move across the brushing, across the polishing. Because yeah, you might be indoors, you might be in your vehicle. You're not always going to be in just blam light, right? Sometimes it's maybe a little bit lower. So really nice piece. I love the color. Look at the way the blue and the like the AR mixing in with just the way the crystal kind of wraps around the edge there, and then the actual color way that's in that. It's just the way the light plays. Just look at the way that bezel, the way the light dances on it. Very cool. It has such a three-dimensional kind of wet dial look to it, and a lot of that has to do with that selection of sapphire crystal with that kind of slightly boxed dome edge, which I really do enjoy looking at. So closing thoughts on the wrist: very bold wear, of course, tons of presence and personality. It definitely still attains and retains that kind of sporty retro vibe. This thing does not look very modern at all. It's just a fun kind of throwback compressor style watch. Now, as far as model variants go, there's two black dial options. One's a modern style, which is going to have a more of a white tone, and then one's a little bit more of a vintage style. So we're just going to have a tone similar to the lume you're going to see here, where you can see a little bit more pigment actually shine through when it's not illuminated in the darkness. Now, as far as comparable models go, it's tough to say. You're thinking something solid: beads of rice bracelet, diver's extension, compressor style, inner rotating bezel. There's not a lot that really comes to mind. So it's hard to say that as far as comparables here, but under $400 at $370 direct. That's some pretty good pricing considering everything that you're getting with the sapphire hackable, hand windable movement. So I gotta say, this thing, their take on the compressor diver got that much better by adding this beads of rice bracelet. I thought that the last release was still good. It almost had a little bit of a blue alpinist vibe to it, especially on the strap that it came on. But you throw on this beads of rice and it just takes it back into the 70s, and just a kind of real fun water sports watch, which really ties into their kind of that that nautical aesthetic. Really fan of this one. Obviously, it's on the more on the entry level side, but I think tons of you guys are looking for stuff like this, so I'm happy to share it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.